Salem News Channel. We continue our discussion with Salem News Channel host and filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, we just saw each other on Sunday in Phoenix. There was speculation that Charlie Kirk was changing his attitude about Israel. What can you say about that?
There is a peculiarity when you're running a nonprofit institution. You essentially have two groups of customers. You have your donors, you have, in a sense, your audience. So here's Charlie Kirk. He can't run an organization without having donors. Now, the donors represent, I would call it, the older mainstream of the Republican Party. And these are people, by and large, who are Reaganites. They're pro-Israel. They believe, as we do, that Israel is a good ally of the United States. Their commitment to Israel isn't unlimited. But on the other hand, they think that if we're not sending troops over there, if we can have Israel fighting on the front line, it's very good for us. That's the general view of the donors. Now, a lot of young people, though, are being sort of seduced away from Israel by some, young guys like Nick Fuentes and some of the other people on the so-called Groyper right. And so Charlie was kind of caught in this because he noticed that some of his younger audience was drifting away from Israel and his donors are pro-Israel. So I don't think there's anything kind of weird or unusual about that. I've actually seen it happen many times, having been in various think tanks and research foundations and nonprofit groups in my earlier career. It's all quite normal. Mm-hmm. But what is abnormal is the absolutely preposterous conclusions that some people have drawn from that, which is that Netanyahu had him knocked off. That is, and my point is, this is so ridiculous that Netanyahu himself had to make a video saying, I didn't do it. So this gives you an idea of how these pernicious falsehoods can spread with no basis whatsoever, and they're being peddled by some very influential figures on the right.
Dinesh, if I had told you 2 years ago the leading Democratic candidate for mayor in New York is a man who belongs to the Democrat Socialist America, their platform calls for boycott, divest, sanction, a man who refers to Israel as engaging in genocide in Gaza, a man who has said horrific things about Israel and about Jews. If I told you he would likely become the next mayor of New York, and his promise, if so, he would arrest Bibi Netanyahu as a war criminal if he sets foot on New York soil, if I had told you this 2 years ago, I think you would have said you're insane.
Yes, I would. Of course, there's an inherent irony in the Big Apple, which, of course, represents the apex of global capitalism, the idea of having a capitalist city that was really built by free markets out of nothing, right? Remember, when the Dutch bought it from the Indians, it was worth like 50 cents, and it would still be worth 50 cents if capitalism hadn't got a hold of it. So the idea of a socialist is already amazing, but I'll add to that, what Mamdani represents is this peculiar intersection between radical Islam on the one side and then sort of leftist socialism on the other. And that is something that's bigger than Mamdani. We're seeing it all over the place. We are seeing the way, for example, in which, let's just say, radical Islam in Palestine, for example, is now being supported by, like, gays for Palestine, queers for Palestine, people in America who could never possibly move to Gaza, nevertheless champion the cause of Gaza. So Mamdani represents the two worst strains of the left. It is leftism and identity politics on the one side, and it is radical Islam on the other. He's the marriage of both.
What is Chuck Schumer going to do, Dinesh? He has referred to boycott, divest, sanction as anti-Semitic. He said that for at least over 10 years. Mamdani is an enthusiastic supporter of boycott, divest, sanction. As you know, Schumer has not formally endorsed him. He's being pressured to do so by Bernie Sanders and by AOC. What is Schumer going to do?
Well, Schumer's dilemma is this, and that is that the energy in the Democratic Party, especially among the young people, is coming from this far left faction. He needs them as his stormtroopers. He needs them as his kind of guys on the street, the activists, the energy. But here's the problem. You can't win an election with Mamdani. You might be able to win an election in New York. That's surprisingly enough, but you couldn't win an election probably in New York State, let alone in the country as a whole. So the more the Democratic Party falls into this little hole, in a certain way, it's better for Republicans, because it essentially means the Democrats are putting themselves into a cocoon. They're putting themselves into a hole in which they won't be able to get out of.
Yeah, bad for New York City, better for Republicans. The movie is called The Dragon's Prophecy. It's in theaters 2 nights only, October 6th and 8th. Streaming and DVDs available October the 9th. All tickets and pre-orders at thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. That's thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. Dinesh has done it again. Dinesh, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Larry, always a pleasure.
You got it.